The pain in my ribs made it hard to breathe. As I sat down at the Easter dinner table, my daughter Sophie shot me a warning glance, then smiled at the assembled guests. Derek, my son-in-law, raised his wine glass and announced loudly, "A toast to Victor, still tough as nails, even after that nasty fall down the cottage stairs." His grin was all teeth, no warmth. Guess the old man learned his lesson about wandering around in the dark, eh? I smiled back, keeping my expression neutral, despite the sharp pain that radiated through my chest with each breath. This was the second time in a month I was staring down a man who wanted me dead, and this time, he was family. Let him think I was just a clumsy old fool. Let him believe his plan had worked, because what Derek didn't know was that I hadn't fallen down those stairs at all, and I had proof. But the proof of his murder plot wasn't enough. I needed to survive the night first. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The setup for his trap began exactly 4 weeks earlier. The old detective in me missed every single red flag at first. My name is Victor Harrington. I'm 68 years old, and I spent 38 years with the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, the last 17 as a detective in the Major Crimes Unit. I'd seen my share of darkness, the kind that makes you question human nature, murder, fraud, domestic violence. I'd investigated them all. 38 years is a lifetime on the thin blue line. I earned my quiet. I thought retirement would mean peace, quiet mornings tending to my late wife Eleanor's garden, maybe finally getting in some serious fishing at the lake. Eleanor passed 3 years ago. Cancer. She fought hard, but in the end it took her. That loss was the first great defeat of my life, the one case I couldn't solve, the one person I couldn't save. After that, my daughter Sophie became everything to me. She was our only child, a nurse at Regina General Hospital in Regina. Smart, caring, with her mother's kind eyes. When she married Derek 6 years ago, I'd had my reservations. The guy was a real estate developer, always talking about his next big deal, always spending money he didn't quite have yet. He had the charm, sure, but I saw the hunger in his eyes, the kind I'd seen on men in handcuffs. But Sophie loved him, and I kept my concerns to myself. You learn to read people in my line of work. I read Derek the minute I shook his hand, and I chose to ignore the warning signs for my daughter's sake. That's what fathers do, right? It was early June when Sophie called. I was in my workshop behind the house building a bookshelf for my spare room. My phone buzzed and her face appeared on the screen, bright and smiling. "Dad, how are you?" "Good, sweetheart. Just working on a project." "What's up?" "Well, Derek and I were talking, and we realized you haven't been up to the cottage since Mom passed. We thought maybe it would be nice to go there for a weekend, just the three of us, get away from the city, spend some quality time together. What do you think?" The cottage. Eleanor and I had built it 25 years ago on Lake Manitoba, about an hour and a half north of the city. It wasn't just wood and nails. It was our sanctuary, our escape, the place where our best memories lived. I hadn't been back since she died. I knew the silence would be louder there, the echoes of her laughter too sharp. Too many memories. I don't know, Em. It's winter. The roads can be rough and the cottage isn't exactly set up for cold weather stays. Derek's already thought of that. He had the heat turned on remotely, and he's been checking on the place. Everything's ready. Plus, it would be good for you, Dad. You've been cooped up in that house for too long. If you're invested in finding out what Victor's instinct is telling him, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any part of this story. Please. There was something in her voice. Not quite desperation, but close. I wondered if she and Derek were having problems. Maybe she wanted neutral ground to talk things through. All right, I agreed. When were you thinking? This coming weekend, we could drive up Friday afternoon, stay through Sunday. I'll make Mom's famous lamb casserole. That sealed it. Eleanor's lamb casserole had been my favorite. Okay, sweetheart, Count me in. Perfect. Derek will pick you up Friday at 2. Love you, Dad. Love you too. M. I hung up, but something nagged at me. Maybe it was 38 years of cop instinct, or maybe it was just grief making me paranoid, but Derek offering to turn on the heat and check on the cottage seemed oddly generous. He'd never shown much interest in the place before, always complaining it was too far from the city, too rustic, too boring. A good detective knows that when a piece doesn't fit the puzzle, you don't throw the piece away. You question the entire picture. I pushed the thought aside. Maybe he was trying to be a better son-in-law. Maybe he was making an effort for Sophie's sake. Friday arrived cold and gray, typical Saskatchewan December weather. I packed a small bag with warm clothes, my medication for the high blood pressure I'd developed since Eleanor's death, and a book I'd been meaning to read. At 2:00 sharp, Derek's black Toyota Hilux pulled into my driveway. He was alone. "Where's Sophie?" I asked as I climbed into the passenger seat. "Change of plans," Derek said, pulling back onto the street. "She got called in for an emergency shift at the hospital, some kind of pileup on the perimeter highway. She'll drive up tomorrow morning when her shift ends." "Should we wait for her then?" "Nah," she insisted we go ahead. Said she didn't want to ruin the weekend. You know how she is, always putting work first. There was an edge to his voice when he said that. We drove in silence for a while. Derek seemed tense, checking his mirrors frequently, his jaw clenched. I tried to make conversation. "How's the real estate business?" "Busy. Always busy. Got a few developments in the works. That's good." More silence then. "Actually, Victor, I wanted to talk to you about something. Here it comes. I thought he needs money. I'm expanding the business, looking at some commercial properties. Big investment, but the returns could be substantial. I was wondering if you might be interested in partnering up, use some of your retirement funds. It's a sure thing." There it was, as I kept my voice neutral. "How much are we talking about?" "Well, to get a decent stake, probably around $350,000, but like I said, the returns would be excellent, 30-40% annually. I'd heard that pitch before from fraud artists and Ponzi scheme operators. No legitimate investment guarantees those kinds of returns." "Let me think about it," I said. Derek's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "Sure, take your time, but I need to know soon. The opportunity won't last forever." We pulled off the highway onto the gravel road that led to the cottage. The trees closed in around us, heavy with snow. The sun was already setting, painting the sky in shades of bruised orange and cold gray. Derek drove fast, too fast for the conditions, and the black Toyota Hilux fishtailed dangerously on the icy patches. It wasn't just reckless driving. It felt like he was running from something. "Easy," I said. "No need to rush." He didn't slow down. We arrived at the cottage as darkness fell completely. It looked smaller than I remembered, more isolated. The nearest neighbor was 5 kilometers away. No cell service out here either. We'd installed a landline years ago for emergencies, but I hadn't checked if it still worked. Derek grabbed his bag from the back seat and mine. "I'll get these inside. You go ahead and start the fire." The cottage was cold. Despite Derek's claims about having the heat turned on, my breath came out in clouds. I found the thermostat and cranked it up, then moved to the fireplace. The wood bin was empty. "Derek, we need to get firewood from the shed. I'll do it in a minute. Just let me unpack." He disappeared into one of the bedrooms, closing the door behind him. I heard him talking, probably on his phone while he still had a signal from the road. The tone was urgent, hushed. I put on my coat and went outside to get the firewood myself. The shed was around the back of the cottage, accessible by a set of wooden stairs that led down from the deck. The stairs were old, weathered by years of harsh Manitoba winters. Eleanor had always said we needed to replace them. I grabbed the wood, loaded my arms full, and started back up. That's when I noticed it. The second step from the top had been sawed partway through, the cut hidden by a thin layer of snow. If someone put their weight on it, it would snap, sending them tumbling down onto the frozen ground 2 meters below. My blood went cold, and it had nothing to do with the temperature. I examined the cut more closely, brushing away the snow. Fresh sawdust stuck to my gloves. This had been done recently. Within the last few hours, I carefully stepped over the damaged stair and went back inside. Derek was in the kitchen pulling groceries from a cooler. "Found the problem with the stairs," I said, watching his face carefully. "Second step is rotted through. Almost fell right through it. We'll need to be careful." His expression didn't change. "Oh yeah, that's dangerous. Good thing you noticed. I'll take a look at it tomorrow in the daylight, see if we can fix it." He was good. I'd interrogated hundreds of suspects over my career, and Derek's poker face was better than most. But there was a tiny twitch at the corner of his left eye. He was lying. It was a micro-expression of pure panic, the kind only a truly desperate man exhibits. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Good thing." That night, I barely slept. I lay in the bedroom I'd shared with Eleanor, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The saw stare, Derek's lies about the heat being on, the pressure to invest money, Sophie conveniently called away. A pattern was forming, and I didn't like where it pointed. The next morning, I woke to find Derek already up. Coffee made. He seemed cheerful, almost manic. "Morning, Victor. Sleep well?" "Well enough. When's Sophie supposed to arrive?" She texted me. "Her shift ran long. She won't make it until late afternoon. Thought maybe you and I could do some fishing. The ice should be thick enough on the lake. Ice fishing on Lake Manitoba in December with a man I was starting to suspect wanted me dead." "Maybe later," I said. "My hip's been bothering me. Think I'll just relax here, read my book." Derek's smile tightened. "Come on, Victor. Don't be boring. Eleanor wouldn't want you sitting around like an old man." The mention of my wife's name in that context made my jaw clench, but I kept my voice level. I said, "Maybe later." After breakfast, Derek announced he was going into town for supplies. "We're low on a few things. Should only take an hour or so. You'll be okay here alone." "I've been taking care of myself for 68 years, Derek. I think I'll manage." The moment his truck disappeared down the road, I went to work. First, I checked the landline. Dead. The cord had been cut, hidden behind the desk. Another accident. Next, I went through Derek's bag in the bedroom. Buried under his clothes, I found a folder. Inside were documents. Mortgage papers on a commercial property in Regina dated 3 months ago. Amount $2.1 million. Behind that, casino cash advance receipts, dozens of them totaling nearly $480,000. Letters from collection agencies, a notice of foreclosure. Derek wasn't just in financial trouble. He was drowning. At the bottom of the folder, I found something that made my stomach drop. Life insurance documents. Mine. A policy Eleanor and I had taken out 25 years ago worth $800,000. The beneficiary had been Eleanor, but after her death, I'd changed it to Sophie, or so I thought. According to these documents, the beneficiary had been changed 6 months ago to Derek. My hands shook as I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I needed more evidence, something concrete, and I needed to be smart about it. Derek was desperate, and desperate men were dangerous. I went outside and examined the stairs again in the daylight. He had the motive, a $800,000 policy. But what was the next stage of his plan? I knew he'd come back for the money. The question was when. Using my phone, I took photos of the cut, the sawdust, everything. Then I checked the perimeter of the property. The woodshed door had fresh pry marks. Derek had broken in to get the saw. He wasn't planning an accident. He was planning murder. When Derek returned, I was sitting by the fire, book on lap, appearing for all the world like I didn't have a care in the world. "Hey, Victor, got everything we needed. How about that fishing now? Actually, I was thinking about your investment opportunity. Tell me more about it." His face lit up. For the next hour, he pitched his development project, showing me glossy brochures on his phone, talking about projected returns and market conditions. It was all nonsense. Of course, I'd seen the foreclosure notices. There was no development project. He just needed money to pay his gambling debts. "So, what do you think?" he finally asked. "I think I need to see the actual property, meet with your partners, review the financials. You understand, Derek? I'm a careful man." His expression hardened. "There isn't time for all that. I told you this opportunity won't last. Then I guess it's not meant to be." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Derek stood up slowly, his hands curling into fists at his sides. "You never liked me, did you, Victor? Never thought I was good enough for Sophie? This isn't about shut up, old man. I'm talking now." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "You know what your problem is? You think you're so smart, so superior with your cop stories and your perfect little life, but you're just a washed-up has-been who couldn't even save his wife from cancer." The blow struck deep as it was meant to, but I kept my face impassive. It's amazing what people will do for money and how quickly they'll turn on family. If you agree, click the like button to tell the algorithm you want more stories like this. I think you should leave, Derek. Leave? We're in the middle of nowhere. It's my truck. Sophie won't be here for hours. He smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Besides, we haven't finished our conversation about the investment. See, I really need that money, and one way or another, I'm going to get it. He moved toward me, and I stood positioning myself between him and the fireplace. 38 years of training kicked in. I might have been 68, but I'd kept myself in shape, and I knew how to handle myself. This is your last chance, Derek. Leave now, and we can talk about this calmly tomorrow, when Sophie's here. Sophie's not coming, he said. I told her not to. Told her we needed bonding time, me and her old man. She thinks, we're having a nice father-son weekend, so what's your plan? Kill me? Make it look like an accident? He actually laughed. Kill you? Jesus, Victor, you really have been watching too many cop shows. I'm not going to kill you. You're going to have an unfortunate accident, the stairs you already noticed. Or maybe a fall on the ice. Hell, maybe your heart just gives out from the stress of being so far from your medication. The old me, the retired Victor, might have believed him. But the detective who survived 38 years on the thin blue line, he was ready to fight back. My medication's in my bag. Is it? He pulled a pill bottle from his pocket. My blood pressure medication. Oops. Must have fallen out. These old cottages are dangerous, Victor. Lots of things can go wrong. That's when he rushed me. I sidestepped using his momentum against him, and he crashed into the coffee table. But he was younger, stronger, and fueled by desperation. He recovered quickly and came at me again. This time his fist connected with my ribs and I heard something crack. The pain was blinding. I went down and he was on me, his hands around my throat. Black spots danced in my vision. This was it. This was how it ended. Murdered by my own son-in-law in the cottage I'd built with my wife. But then, through the fog of oxygen deprivation, I remembered something. Eleanor's gun. She'd kept a .357 revolver in the cottage, insisted on it for protection. It was in the drawer of the bedroom nightstand. I bucked my hips, throwing Derek off balance, and brought my knee up hard into his groin. He howled and released his grip. I rolled away, gasping, and stumbled toward the bedroom. He was right behind me. I yanked open the nightstand drawer. The gun was there, loaded, exactly where Eleanor had left it. I spun around just as Derek reached me, and he froze, staring down the barrel. Back off, I wheezed, my throat raw. Now. He raised his hands, but his eyes were calculating. You won't shoot me, Victor. You're a by-the-book cop. Besides, how would you explain it to Sophie? Self-defense, and you'd be surprised what I'll do to survive. I gestured toward the main room. Move slowly. He complied, walking backwards. I followed, keeping the gun trained on him. My ribs screamed with each breath, but adrenaline kept me upright. Sit in that chair, hands on the armrests where I can see them. While I kept the gun on him, I used electrical tape from the junk drawer to secure his wrists to the chair arms and his ankles to the chair legs. Not perfect, but it would hold him for a while. You can't keep me here, he said. Sophie will come looking. No landline, remember? And no cell service. Sophie won't worry until tomorrow at the earliest. By then, the RNC will be here. His face went pale. What did you do before you got back from town? I walked to the road, got just enough signal to send some texts to Sophie, to my old partner at the detachment, told them both that I was concerned about some things I'd found, that I needed help. My partner's probably already on his way. It was a bluff. I hadn't made it to the road, but Derek didn't know that. You can't prove anything, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos of the saw stare. Actually, I can. You can't retire from vigilance. That's the lesson here. Let me know in the comments. Would you have trusted your son-in-law? Plus, the documents in your bag about my life insurance policy, the forged signature, changing the beneficiary. That's fraud, Derek. And combined with the assault I just endured, the attempted murder charges are going to stick. His face crumpled. I didn't mean for it to go this far. The debts just kept growing, and I thought, if I could just get access to some capital, I could turn it all around. I love Sophie, Victor. I do. But I got in too deep. So you decided to kill me. I needed that insurance money. After you were gone, I was going to take care of Sophie. I swear. The life insurance plus your house, your savings. It would have been enough to cover everything and still have left over for Sophie. You would have bankrupted my daughter, trying to save yourself. He said nothing, because we both knew it was true. I sat down heavily in a chair across from him, the gun still in my hand, but resting on my lap. My ribs throbbed. You know what the sad thing is, Derek? This is the moment that separates the villain from the human. If you'd just been honest, if you'd come to me and told me you were in trouble, I might have helped. Not with the gambling debts, but with getting you into treatment, helping you find a way out. That's what family does. We're not family, he spat. You made sure I knew that every single day. Maybe there was some truth to that. Maybe I hadn't been as welcoming as I should have been, but it didn't excuse attempted murder. We sat in silence as the sun set and the temperature dropped. I didn't dare leave to get firewood, not with Derek secured, but potentially able to work himself free. So, we waited in the growing cold. Around 9 p.m., headlights flashed through the windows. A vehicle pulled up outside. My heart raced. Had my bluff worked? Was it the RNC? The door opened and Sophie walked in. She took in the scene immediately. Me, bruised and bleeding, holding a gun. Derek taped to a chair. Her face went white. Dad, what happened? What did you do? Not what I did, sweetheart. What he did. I quickly explained everything. The sawed stare, the forged insurance documents, the attack. With each revelation, I watched my daughter's face transform from confusion to horror to grief. When I finished, she turned to Derek. Is it true? He couldn't meet her eyes. I can explain. Is it true? I was desperate. I made mistakes. But I did it for us. For our future. You tried to kill my father. Her voice broke. How is that for us? She pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. No signal here, I reminded her. Landline's cut too. We need to drive to where there's service. Sophie looked at Derek one more time, and I saw her heart break in real time. Then she hardened, becoming someone I didn't quite recognize. Let's go, Dad. We'll take my car. He can stay here and think about what he's done. We can't just leave him. Watch me. We left Derek taped to the chair, drove 20 minutes until we had cell service, and called the RNC. Sergeant Alan Fraser, my old partner, met us at the detachment. I gave my statement, showed him the evidence on my phone, told him where to find the insurance documents in Derek's bag. They arrested Derek at the cottage 3 hours later. The charges: attempted murder, fraud, forgery, assault, causing bodily harm. The evidence was overwhelming. Which brings me back to the Easter dinner table. 4 weeks after that nightmare weekend, the broken ribs Derek gave me were still healing, making it hard to breathe, hard to sit upright for long periods. But I'd insisted on hosting the family dinner anyway. Sophie deserved some normality after everything she'd been through. Derek, of course, was out on bail pending trial. His lawyer had convinced the judge he wasn't a flight risk. Not with Sophie still legally his wife. She'd filed for divorce the day after his arrest. But these things take time in Canada. And somehow Sophie had allowed him to come to Easter dinner. For closure, she'd said, I need to see him one more time, face him with the family around. I'd argued against it, but she was my daughter, and she was hurting, so I'd agreed. Now sitting at my dinner table with my cracked ribs screaming, I watched Derek play the role of misunderstood victim. My younger brother Richard and his wife Claire sat stiffly, unsure how to react. Sophie's cousin Nathan kept glaring at Derek. The tension was thick enough to cut. So Victor, Derek said, his voice carrying that false joviality. Now that you've had time to think about it, realized it was all just a big misunderstanding. When are you going to drop those charges? I mean, we're family, right? The table went silent. Everyone stared at me. I carefully set down my fork, the movement sending sharp pains through my ribs. I looked Derek directly in the eye. A misunderstanding. Is that what you're calling attempted murder now? Dad, Sophie started, but I held up a hand. No, sweetheart. Let me say this. I turned back to Derek. You sawed through the cottage stairs, planning for me to fall and break my neck. You cut the landline so I couldn't call for help. You forged my signature to change my life insurance beneficiary. And when none of that worked fast enough, you put your hands around my throat and tried to choke me to death. Derek's mask slipped. You can't prove. The RNC has photos, documents, your fingerprints on the saw, and I have these. I carefully pulled up my shirt, revealing the massive purple and yellow bruising across my ribs and chest. 3 cracked ribs, severe contusions, ligature marks on my throat, all documented by the hospital the night you attacked me. I lowered my shirt and leaned forward, ignoring the pain. You didn't teach me a lesson, Derek. You didn't prove I was old and weak and in your way. You proved something else entirely. What's that? He asked, his voice tight. That you're a coward who tried to murder an unarmed 68-year-old man for insurance money, and you still failed. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophie was crying quietly. Nathan looked like he wanted to vault across the table and strangle Derek himself. Richard just shook his head in disgust. Derek stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I don't have to sit here and take this abuse. Sophie, we're leaving. No, Sophie said quietly. What? She looked up at him, her eyes red, but her voice steady. No, Derek, you're leaving alone. The divorce papers are being served tomorrow. My lawyer says with the criminal charges, I'll get everything. The house, the car, all of it. You're going to prison, and when you get out, you'll have nothing. No wife, no family, no future. Sophie, please get out of my father's house. Derek looked around the table, seeking an ally, finding none. Finally, his mask cracked completely. You're all going to regret this. I'll appeal. I'll fight. You'll go to prison, I said calmly. The Crown prosecutor tells me you're looking at 12 to 18 years minimum. And in Canada prisons, they don't look kindly on men who hurt the elderly. You'll have a lot of time to think about your choices." He stared at me with pure hatred, then stormed out. We heard his car start, tires spinning on the icy driveway as he sped away. After a moment, Richard raised his glass. "To Victor, tough as nails, even after everything. To Dad," Sophie added, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Nothing to be sorry for, sweetheart. You loved the wrong man. That's not a crime, but you chose right in the end. And that's what matters." We finished dinner quietly, and afterward everyone helped clean up. When they'd all gone home, Sophie stayed behind. We sat by the fireplace, not speaking, just being together. "He really would have killed you," she finally said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes, and you kept yourself alive using everything you learned in all those years with the RNC. That's what the darkness tries to take, your life, your home, your family. But when you fight back, it takes something from them too. Their freedom, their future, their pride. Yes, Mom would be proud." That made me smile despite the pain in my ribs. "Your mother would have shot him the moment he walked in the door. She never liked him much either." That got a small laugh from Sophie, the first real one I'd heard from her in weeks. We sat there until the fire burned low. Father and daughter, survivors both. Derek's trial is set for June. The evidence is overwhelming, and his lawyer has already hinted at a plea deal. I'll testify if needed, though the prosecutor thinks it won't come to that. The physical evidence tells the story clearly enough. I sold the cottage. Too many bad memories now layered over the good ones with Eleanor. The money went into a trust for Sophie to help her rebuild her life. My ribs healed slowly. At my age, everything heals slower, but I'm still here, still breathing, still standing. Derek tried to teach me a lesson about getting old, about being weak, about being in the way. Instead, I taught him one. Age isn't weakness. Experience isn't irrelevant, and a desperate man with a plan is no match for a careful man with 38 years of catching criminals. That's the lesson Derek learned in the end, and it's one he'll have plenty of time to remember while he's serving his sentence. As for me, I'm learning to live again. Not just breathing, but truly inhabiting the space and time I was so nearly robbed of. My life with Eleanor taught me love. My career with the RNC taught me survival. Derek taught me that you can't retire from vigilance. My cracked ribs are a constant, tender memoir, reminding me with every inhalation that survival isn't a passive event. It's a fierce, continuous choice. What I truly gained wasn't just my life back, but a profound clarity that cuts through the fog of betrayal and age. We often believe that strength fades with the years, but Victor's story proves the opposite. Time distills wisdom, sharpens instinct, and forges an unshakable inner core. He was saved not by brute force, but by 38 years of learned awareness, the ultimate form of emotional and situational intelligence. The real devastation in this tale belongs to Sophie, the collateral damage of a love misplaced. Her healing, and Victor's devotion to it, showcases the deepest form of love, the willingness to bear witness to another's pain and hold the truth for them until they can hold it themselves. This experience teaches us a universal, vital lesson. Never silence your inner detective. That nagging instinct, that sense of a piece not fitting the puzzle, is your soul's defense mechanism speaking volumes. Do not rationalize away the red flags in your relationships or your life. Trust your gut. What is the one thing you are ignoring right now because it's uncomfortable? Take a moment, find the quiet space, and listen to the voice you've been silencing. Protect your peace. That quiet awareness is the most powerful deterrent against the darkness. The final victory isn't about revenge. It's about the conscious, resilient choice to choose life, heal your heart, and live with open, uncompromised awareness.